Welcome to the podcast Friday Feels, brought to you by the Office of Counseling and Wellness at Berkeley College. I'm your host and personal counselor, Sarah Nickerson. Join our journey with Berkeley students as they navigate the challenges of the current pandemic with strength, creativity, and wisdom. New episodes released every Friday. Thanks for listening. Welcome, Robert, to Friday Feels. We're very glad to have you today. How are you feeling?
I am doing very well.
Yeah? How has the pandemic been for you so far?
Well, I haven't seen my parents since February.
Oh.
I haven't seen my girlfriend since March.
Oh.
She's in White Plains and I'm in Vermont.
Oh, that's so hard.
The plan, you know what they say about plans.
Yes.
The plan was to have me gradually establish a presence down in the greater New York area so that I would be, moving back and forth because my kid's up here, but she's down there. And I know my future's down there in the city. And my cousin lives in the Baltimore area. So the idea was, I'll be in the New York area, so I'll be centrally located to everybody.
Yeah.
And then this virus hit.
I know.
At first, it was wear your mask, and because the merchants, some of them were jacking up the price on hand sanitizer, that Governor Cuomo had launched his own brand of hand sanitizer. And that was the last moment of levity that this entire thing has had.
Yes.
I mean, that was legitimately funny. And the Daily News had a front page that was tongue-in-cheek, but, it wouldn't be New York without them.
Yeah, that's true. They're like a fixture in the New York, this grand scheme of New York.
Yes. So, after that, it was, oh my goodness, what on earth is happening here? And you see numbers of people dying, and you say, well, I guess I'm glad it's not anybody I know. And fortunately, very fortunately, I might add, I don't know anyone who has succumbed to this or even been hit with the bug, but you see the numbers, and then it hits you that even as a guy who worked in news and had to be the steady on the other end with breaking bad news to people, each one of these numbers is someone who has relatives, and everyone has been rocked by this.
What do you feel like for you, what has been toughest?
It has been the isolation factor.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I had considered that gradually migrating to the New York area would be great for my psyche, because 22 years in northern Vermont was about enough.
Yes.
And then it's not for the scenery. The scenery is great. The fresh air is great. And if I'm going to have to be isolated someplace due to this virus, I guess Vermont is a better place than an awful lot of other places.
Right.
But the whole factor of me, going down there, it was, I can mingle with other people again.
Yeah.
So not being able to really move much beyond the state of Vermont, and I had an exemption because my kid lives in New Hampshire that I could cross into New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And I learned a few weeks ago that New Hampshire had an exemption for people doing grocery shopping across the Connecticut River, because the Connecticut River is 5 miles away from me. That's the state boundary with New Hampshire.
Interesting.
So,
I didn't
but
know.
I thought, for a month, I was thinking, well, I guess I can stay within town and go to the grocery store in town, but I guess I'm not going over to to the
Right.
supermarket in Littleton, New Hampshire, 12
Yeah.
miles away. But I
Right.
guess I had an exemption for that. But
Yeah.
it's you try to make whatever light moments you can,
For sure.
because it sort of acts as a damper on the cold, cruel reality of the whole thing, that hundreds of thousands of people have died.
No.
Uh,
Well, yeah. And in those light moments for you, like, has there been anything from the pandemic that has been like, yeah, like a moment of joy or something surprising that happened or some good that came out of it for you?
well, I think, geez, wouldn't I have been in a predicament had I established myself down in the greater New York area as had been the intent
Mm.
just a couple of months before this? I got my real estate. I passed my New York State
Oh,
real
congrats.
estate exam
That's great.
for New York State on December the 3rd. Can't do any business in Vermont, can only
Yeah.
do business in New York State. We understand that the game plan was to migrate down to the New York area because you need the license in order to work in property management, even though it's a lease and not a sale. It's showing someone else's property to someone else. So that's without getting too much into the legalese. But that was why I had done it.
Yeah.
Now, I just think to myself, had I finally gotten what my wish was and to get myself established down there, and then this epidemic happens, and I have two liabilities instead of just one.
Mm.
The rent up here is nice and cheap, comparatively speaking.
Right, right.
And to, have a rent in Westchester County compounded with a rent in St. Johnsbury, Vermont,
Mm.
that would have been worse than my just having this rent up here with this situation going on.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
uh,
for sure.
in as much as I really want to be with my girlfriend down there,
Yeah,
it may have been a silver lining that it not had happened just yet.
sure. Do you feel like sort of that delay, like so it sounds like a lot of things for you got delayed. What helped you to stay motivated or what gave you like a sense of hope or kept you moving forward?
Well, I have this master's degree that I'm going through up here, and I can do that online, and that keeps my mind occupied.
Yeah. What are you
And
getting your master's in?
it is business administration
That's great.
with a concentration in management. It won't be in finance.
Okay.
The managerial finance course that I'm going through right now is teaching me that plain and clear, and I'm glad that my focus is on management and not the finance end of it.
Yeah.
Someone else can do those things.
Yeah. That's
But
good.
I have that to look forward to, and I look back and I go, well, I lost my full-time job in radio in 2016,
Mm.
so I've been doing voiceover stuff per job. I mean, that's how it
Cool.
works. Someone sends you something to read and you do it, and then you send it back and they send you money and repeat.
Great.
So you're not paid salary or wage like you would at a radio station. You're paid by the job. And so that is a little bit of uneasiness, and that work has diminished.
Yeah, for sure.
So I keep that in mind, and I said, well, I need to be looking at something else, so I doing the MBA work. But I look at the timeline from then to now and realize that even though there's this pandemic that is slowing things up, it's not nearly as bad as it was in 2016.
Yeah.
And I have an understanding woman in my life who is, graduated from the same place I did 20 some years ago.
Yeah.
And so we both understand that our prior relationships were awful. So we also understand that the important things in life usually take a lot of work and a lot of time.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So the fact that something is slowed up for, 3 to 6 months in the whole scheme of things, that's not that big.
For sure. So like trying to put things into perspective for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Perspective is very important.
Did you pick up any hobbies or like do anything fun during this time that maybe you wouldn't have had time to do otherwise?
Well, they tell you they told you at first to, stay indoors. So, I wasn't getting my walks around the town as I had been.
Right.
And the prospect of slipping on ice, which would be an annual thing, is not all that much of a prospect. So I stayed indoors, and the scale is very, very honest to me with regards to that. But
for me too, don't worry.
But I've gotten into some movies on television, this thing called Netflix that I've been looking at that I normally would not have had the time to look at. But, after looking at Netflix for a number of hours, you start saying to yourself, geez, I really need to be focusing on that work. So it's the psychological hit of all of it that weighs down on the academic work even.
Yeah.
Because even though I'm doing the academic work from the same desk that I was last year and the year before.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the knowledge that I just can't hop in my car and drive down to White Plains on a whim to say hi and hop on the commuter train and head into the city and have some fun. Can't do that.
Yeah.
Because I have to quarantine for 14 days if I do that when I get back.
I know. Yeah. I just went to visit my family for a little bit in Virginia because I hadn't seen them since Christmas. And before I left, Virginia was not on the banned state list. But then by the time I was coming back, it was. So I've just been quarantining in my house for forever. It was good to see them, but yeah, it's hard when, we're trying to be careful and make sure that we're being responsible, and it's a tough season.
Yeah, it is tough to keep focused when you have the reality of all that out there. And I can drive over to Maine. Maine's letting you go over. Maine's letting me go over, and because I'm in Vermont, and we've been able to keep our numbers down. And I can go into some counties in New York and some counties in Massachusetts and Connecticut, but not all of them.
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh, man, I'm hoping things will, hopefully our numbers will continue to drop and things will start to open up. But yeah, it's been tough. Well, my last question for you is if you had to give one, or not one word, but if you had to give advice or recommendations or any sort of encouragement to other Berkeley students, what would you say?
Try to keep as much of your routine as possible. I know it's tough. You get kids living, at home with you. I see mine every other weekend, so it's different for me.
Yeah.
But I get dressed for work just like I would in the morning, and get air conditioning, I could do it. And that keeps me focused the way I should be on these things. And then when I'm done work, I change and I sit in the recliner and turn on the TV. The temptations of the television and all that stuff on Netflix, and now that baseball and hockey are back, that can be a big distraction if you allow it to.
Yeah, for sure.
So I take those things, even though I'm not going out, not seeing anybody. It's the psychological feeling of I'm preparing to get my mind engaged to do work.
Right.
So that's what I do.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that's important too, right? Because I feel like in the pandemic, a lot of people have a hard time balancing and trying to figure out that happy medium between rest and work, and then being at home all the time. It's really hard to get into the right mindset. So that's cool that you've developed something that works for you and figured out how to keep pressing forward even when things have been hard.
Yeah, some people can do their work from home in their sweatpants and t-shirt, but I tried that and it doesn't work all that well.
Right. Yeah, you got to know what works for you. That's really good.
So that would be at least a little bit of advice. And even though I'm a news junkie and it was my life for years, I would, listen to it a little bit in the morning and then watch for about a half an hour in the evening, and then that's it.
Yeah. I think that's good too, limiting the amount of news that you're consuming during the day.
Yeah, those would be my 2 bits of advice, really. It's, I'm minimal as far as the guidelines, but I keep them general and people can adapt them to suit.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thanks so much, Robert. I really enjoyed talking to you today, and I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me and share a little bit of what your life has been like in the pandemic and some of the things that have worked for you. And I'm really grateful that I got to meet you today.
All right. It's been my pleasure.
All right, Robert. Have a good rest of your day.
Same to you.
Bye. That's all for now. Join us next week for another episode of Friday Feels. Enjoy your weekend and stay safe. Be well.